instinctively get quiet, so I need to make sure that I keep talking so that we're filling this with the sound of my voice, and so that by the time it's done, we're good to go. What are you doing, Mike?
And Ryan passed out.
Yeah, right now I'm just thumbing through the cards from my Brawl deck that are rotating out. So, most of them are just utility, but there's a couple of important ones in here.
I mean, your commander is Ral, right? So he's sticking around.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, the vast majority of this deck is stuff from the 3 Ravnica sets anyway.
And if anything, you might be getting... Well, I should save this for the show.
Yeah.
Good call. So, Fan says the timbre of Chewy is different. What's that mean? Timbre.
Kind of like tone.
Timbre's not a word. Ah, okay. This word. The acoustics and phonetics. Huh. Nothing's changed in my... Has anything changed in my room? Nothing's changed in my room. No?
You know, maybe something's changed in everybody else's ears.
I don't know. What? No, don't play an ad. Screw you, dictionary.com. Okay.
Subway?
I didn't actually watch to see what it was. I just closed it. Because bump that.
Oh, so I was absentmindedly looking at some magic related stuff on eBay the past couple days, and then I saw when I was reading some news today during my lunch break, I was reading some news and I saw an ad over to the side of the screen that of course was an ad for eBay stuff, and it was 6 tiles. 5 of the 6 tiles were magic cards on eBay. The 6th tile looked like some kind of gimp mask.
So what you're saying is that the algorithm has learned your tastes.
Apparently it has something to share with me that I didn't know before.
I mean, you don't have to put on air so that we're all friends here. We knew if you didn't.
I wish I didn't have to learn this way. eBay's just trying to help me out. eBay's trying to help a brother out.
So, Chewy.
I am Chewy.
If Mike is trying to advocate for the use of gimp masks or other masks, are we going to have to boot him from the call and suspend him for a year?
Damn it, Brian.
That was a reach, even for...
That was pretty tortured.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. Everybody just be glad that this isn't on the actual show. So, this is what you pay for. Haha! Or help get here early to listen to. So...
Yeah, this is not... this is actually being recorded, so hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, apologies for Brian. Pinball wins through 10 bits to help Mike buy some quality BDSM gear.
I probably should just go ahead and apologize for me just in general. So.
What can you get for 10 bits? Like a shoelace or something?
Probably more than that. 10 bits is 10 cents. So
okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a shoelace. Maybe the shoelaces are on sale.
We can only hope.
Anyway, but yeah, along the same lines, there was a thing several years ago where Target had an algorithm about stuff that people were buying, and they sent coupons to a girl for like baby clothes and baby food and stuff, and her dad was pissed because what are you trying to encourage my daughter to have premarital sex? What is wrong with you? And it turns out she was pregnant, and the algorithm had tracked what she was buying and had decided that the change in what she was buying indicated that she was probably pregnant, so it started sending her coupons for, baby stuff.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and the algorithm knew before her father.
I hadn't heard about this, but this is some serious Skynet type stuff.
Yeah, and that was years ago just with what she was buying. So imagine these days with Google Analytics and everything, imagine how much it knows about you.
Mm-hmm.
It could probably tell me what I'm going to do tomorrow before I know myself.
I mean, I could tell you what you're going to do tomorrow.
Well, let me know, because I really didn't have any plans.
No, call me tomorrow and tell me what you did, and I'll let you know if it matched my notes.
And cross your heart?
And hope to die. Like usual. Anyway.
Oh, wow, that escalated quickly. You thought my comment was bad. Jeez.
The world is depressing these days. All right, let's get into it. Dirk will probably show up later. We don't know. But probably any minute now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
So let's get to it. Here we go. Since it's already almost 9, yeah, this is gonna be a short episode just because everyone's gonna have to go to bed before we're done.
And good night. You guys are okay to cover this topic without me, right?
No. All right, okay. Here we go. Ow, jam! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mana Pool. This is episode 571 of the Mana Pool. And I'm Chewy, the lead dork. I'm joined by these other dorks, but again, because it's late and we're pressed for time, I'm going to do their intros for them because Brian takes too long. Brian is our lead rambler and tangent master. Say hi.
Hey.
There we go.
Hi.
And Mike is our beard.
Yeah.
I can still interrupt him even today.
No, that has an actual meaning. Mike is our game lore guy and our rules guy.
Right.
Is the greenest man alive in our moral compass, but he's not here yet. He'll probably be here shortly. But it's already almost 9 o'clock our time, which means Brian needs to leave in like 15 minutes. So we should probably get to it.
Is there any news? There's no news, right?
We don't cover news on the show anyway, so.
Okay. So, for those of you that may or may not have been paying attention, a new set released, and not just any set, but the Throne of Eldraine set, which means it's rotation time. And so if you play standard or extended, then it's time to rotate some of your cards. And then what actually, because
now we have rotated with this? Extended's rotation was so weird. I don't even know if that's accurate or not, but it could have been.
It was on a weird schedule.
It was on.
It wasn't every year.
Right. It was every other year, right?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Every other year on the full moon, if it's a Friday the 13th in a leap year, then half your cards rotated. I don't know.
Depending on what these butterflies do when we put them over here, and is there a tsunami? In which case, yes.
Did Pugsatoni Phil eat a biscuit?
Yeah, maybe you did have to look up and see whether they needed to add a leap second to the clock at the beginning of the year or something like that. I don't know.
Anyway. But so...
biscuit. Sorry.
Stay on target.
That'd be too easy to influence, because I'm sure if you put a biscuit in front of a groundhog, he's just going to go for it.
That's your concern with this system? Oh, okay. So, also Brawl rotates. Or technically, hey!
Oh, and there's Dirk.
There I am.
Chewy's very carefully curated graphic is now...
Just all messed up.
Just all messed up. Hey, Dirk.
So, Dirk, I have bad news.
What's that?
We literally just started.
Okay.
So, hey, Dirk, who are you in 5 seconds or less?
I'm Dirk, the self-proclaimed greenest man alive, moral compass.
And your time's up. Okay.
AKA Baseball Dad.
Baseball Dad. Like. Okay. So.
I have these backwards. Dang it.
With the release of Throne of Eldraine, Standard rotates, as does Brawl. Now, we did a quick episode last year talking about Brawl, and I kind of highlighted some of the decks that I've had, and at the time, not a whole lot had changed, because Brawl was really only introduced with Dominaria, and Dominaria had a ton of legendary creatures, so I think some of my decks lost a couple cards, maybe 10, 12 at the most, This time it's a little more, but let's talk about rotation. So, Stark is interrupting me.
Subbed. How long is that? 28-month streak. Holy crap!
Woo. That's I raise my glass to you, sir. It's a water bottle, but I raise it anyway.
He said interrupting maximum. Yeah, Brian, you have some learning to do.
I do. I kneel at the feet of the master, or some such thing. So, what is now gone from Standard and Brawl? Stuff and things. More specifically, we have lost Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan, Dominaria, that's a big one, and Corset 2019. I am sorry, they have that naming convention still drives me a little crazy, but you know, I'm not going to get up on a soapbox. So, but yeah, so those are some relatively influential sets. Now, we don't tend to cover a whole lot of competitive stuff here, but there was some decent meaty stuff in Ixalan. So I know before we got started,
while Brian talks, I'm gonna have the legendary. This is legendary permanents. Sadly, I didn't narrow it down, but all the legendary things that could be your commander are going to be scrolling by. So if you're watching the video feed, you can get an idea.
There you go.
Unless I accidentally touch my mouse.
Right. So, as you remember, if you're not a fan of Brawl or if you haven't really played, this is pretty big because not only can legendary creatures be your commanders, but also planeswalkers can also be your commander. And because the set rotates with Standard, you do have to change out the things in your decks every 2 years, or every year at least. Again with Standard? Not sure why I was trying to say that differently.
Because you're Brian.
Because I'm Brian. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. And I've actually engaged in some conversations with people, and I know some people don't like Brawl because it rotates, and I get that. And in which case, you know, just play Commander. Commander's still a great format. I'm actually going to be rotating at least one of my decks into Commander, but I'll get back to that later. But for me, as I've said before, rotation is a feature, not a bug. So when we lost Ixalan, Mike, what kind of stuff did we lose when we lost Ixalan? What was one of the main defining features of Ixalan?
The main defining features of Ixalan were the tribal features, the pirates and the dinosaurs and the merfolk and the vampires.
Yeah.
You also had the flip cards that have the like they're regular, but then they flip into some sort of legendary thing.
Oh yeah, the fancy lands on the back.
Yeah, like Journey to Eternity was a big one. So,
and there was the big ship that morphed into, what was it, a land, or was it a something else? I don't remember.
I believe all of the transformed cards in Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan transformed into lands.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So, those are pretty big. Those also, are coming out a lot.
Fix your bracelet. Your buzz is
all right.
Awful.
It's weird.
So yeah, we lose tribal themes. We lose some treasure, although have they decided treasure is evergreen or at least deciduous, or because they were going to make...
I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't have any more.
We don't have any more currently. Okay.
Yeah, they made mention that they'll probably use it again. I think they thought about using it in Eldraine, but they didn't.
Right. And the tribal elements a little bit. Which tribal is always really interesting because it fits into a lot of commander decks, and by extension Brawl decks, because it's one of the ways to tie a deck together. These themes carry forward into Rivals of Ixalan as well. Though I do want to point out that Rivals of Ixalan has one really interesting mechanic for multiplayer and for Commander and Brawl that I have really enjoyed, and that's the Ascension mechanic, where you can get the city's blessing. Because in Commander, and to a certain extent Brawl, some of the games tend to go on a bit longer. You're allowed to amass more resources, you're more often than not going to hit 10 permanents in those formats. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Okay. And then, and I know every group is different, and you may be in a group where, board clearing and even land destruction may be the norm every couple turns, so maybe you won't get there, but a lot of times you will. And once you've ascended and you've got the City's Blessing, some of those cards can be quite impactful. Anything from, a Howling Mine to more efficient creatures or board wipes, things like that. So I thought that Ascension going away is a fairly big deal from a multiplayer perspective. Anything else from Rivals specifically, or mechanics in general? All right. I want to skip Dominaria for just a second because Dominaria is going to be huge. Core Set 2019. That was the one that featured, because it was leading into the Ravnica sets, it went into Nicol Bolas and the other Elder Dragons, correct?
Yes.
So we had I almost said reprint. We have a new printing of the legendary Elder Dragons back from Legends, except they're actually a lot better this time. And I myself, while I promised Chewy this wouldn't be Brian's decks, the episode, I did attempt to build a Chromium deck, and Mike tried piloting it at one point, and it was basically, I didn't know what to do with it. It was just like random stuff. But
I remember there were a couple of build-around cards that literally had nothing to interact with.
Because I didn't know what to do with it. So, so you lose out on that cycle, as well as some other interesting cards, because it was the first time we had a core set since Magic Origins. You had a lot more of just the what I would call the role player cards, where they want cards to be in standard and they don't fit anywhere. So here you go, as well as a way to introduce players to the game. And then there's Dominaria. And this set has a special place in my heart because it's Dominaria. I think what Chewy said when we found out we were even doing Dominaria, we're going home again. It's where Magic started. And one of the things that made it fantastic this time around was the emphasis on legendary creatures. And this was also the same when they announced the set coming out, and we got into previews, was when they also even announced, hey, we've come up with this new format called Brawl. So they married the ideas pretty well, and I think it's pretty significant. Even the very first buy box promo was Fire Song and Sunspeaker, which personally was the very first Brawl deck that I built. And I think Fire Song and Sunspeaker did exactly what they wanted to do with these buy box promos that maybe they didn't do with some of those, like Nexus of Fate, where it's a really cool build around me card that, to my knowledge, never impacted standard ever at all, even slightly. Nope. Am I right about that?
You are correct.
Okay. So that's exactly what we want, right? And Nexus of Fate was not broken, but people were like, and there was a deck named after it, right? So
also, by the way, I fixed the video feed for anyone watching the video version of this. It's now scrolling through just legendary creatures and planeswalkers that rotated out.
Nice. Good job, Chewy. That's why we keep you around.
Me. Now it's all on one page too, so hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Question. Would you like to start that up at the top, and as it goes through we can just comment about them, or do you feel like that would take a little bit too much time?
Yeah.
That would take forever.
Okay. The only reason I asked that up is to get ready for this episode. I did pull out all the cards that are not going to, that I have to take out of these decks. And as we're speaking and I'm watching the video, I saw Whisper, and I'm like, yeah, Whisper was a card that came out of literally every deck with black in it. Why? Because Whisper is awesome. And if you've never played with it, well, you should probably play with it. So But yeah, so Dominaria, you've got historic and you've got the focus on legendary creatures, which of course feeds into Brawl so well because you've got all these potential commanders. And one of the things I love about it is that you don't have to have the same 3 decks over and over again. I understand that when they tried to implement Brawl, was it on Magic Online where they tried to implement it and basically saw barrel decks all day, every day? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Kaladesh block was still, the Kaladesh sets were still legal.
Right. And I think that soured a lot of people to Brawl in general, and it wasn't implemented very well, and that led to a lot of discussion about Brawl just being a dead format, and I'm very glad that we are still here. We're still talking about it. There's revived interest in it on Arena. Chewy is dropping all of his stuff.
I leaned back and my chair went slightly too far, and so I panicked. Yeah, I think Barrel, Chief of Compliance, but I always call him Barrel because he's a
Barrel. Yeah.
But yeah, he made Brawl miserable to play on the Magic Online. And wasn't he banned or something? They did something.
Yeah, eventually.
Okay, yeah.
But was it a case of too little, too late?
Possibly, because they pulled Brawl out of the competitive, you couldn't queue up for a Brawl thing anymore. Brawl was just a casual thing. Which means that not enough people were playing it to make it stay to leave it there. It's the only reason they do that. So I think by then the format actually was dead. There were still pockets of people playing it, but there were still pockets of people playing Tiny Leaders and Prismatic Stairwell. So probably bigger pockets, but it was for all intents and purposes a dead format. But because the champion of the format works at Wizards, there were already things in motion, like the Brawl decks that are now, being a shortage. And
are they going to reprint them?
They are going to be reprinted, but
it's an artificial shortage.
It's not an artificial shortage. They were way more popular than people expected.
Okay.
But
it's not it is an actual one, but it's not a permanent shortage.
Well, we have heard rumors that the reprints are only going to big box stores and not to local game stores. We don't know if that's true or not. But if so, that's a problem.
I'm hoping that's a rumor and not.
I hope so too.
Whoa! Ugh. Sorry, watching the video and it went herky jerky for a second there. I'm gonna try not to throw up.
But yeah, with the Brawl decks coming, but nothing had been announced yet because, they hadn't announced the set that they were coming in yet, and stuff like that. And then they knew it was coming to Arena, so they were like, "Yay! We just hope we can bring it back." And then apparently it did, since the Brawl decks were super popular.
Yeah, this is a point of interest all by itself. Is they can only they design things so far in advance. It's difficult for them to be reactive. I think they should have thrown a little more support behind Brawl between last year and now, because I think the lack of support led a lot of people to think they're not going to do anything to support it anymore. And now, I think some people that don't play Brawl until about a month and a half ago, they just thought, okay, Wizards doesn't care anymore. And then Wizards now is like, hey, by the way, now that we've got Brawl and it's been a year, here's some decks, and we have it in mind, and And some people that tried it and didn't like it, or liked it but didn't see it anywhere, were like, where's this coming from? Is that fair to say? So
yeah, chat just said distributors got told they'd sell the Planeswalker decks, and then they sold the Commander decks, which that's a big difference.
That is not as insignificant difference. So yeah, so that and that is definitely a factor, something I did want to discuss. So part one of this was to discuss the rotation itself, and then use some of our decks as examples, although like I said, this is not supposed to be, okay, Brian going through every one of my decks and talking about what's coming out and what's going in, but I did want to highlight some of the things as an example. Mike also has built a Brawl deck. What were you going to say, Chewy?
I was going to jump down to the multicolored decks, because I'm sure for the most part that's what people were playing as commanders, to multicolored cards, rather.
I think so, just because, I mean, you can certainly do a monocolored deck, and if anything, now with Adamant and some of the commanders that we have from Rivals of Ixalan, some of the legendary creatures, some of the monocolored decks actually look quite attractive. But in general, I think when it comes to the mindset of a lot of players, more colors equals more options, at least without straining your mana base too much. Yeah. Would you rather have a mono white deck or a white green deck? A lot of times you're going to shy toward the white green deck, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Do we want to hit some of the highlights for who's gone? Again, I know you don't want to make a whole thing out of that, but
well, I knew you had was it Ariel deck?
Yeah. So I have them in front of me. My actual first 4 decks that I built, because I want to make sure there was at least one for each of us, were Ariel, Knight of Windgrace, and Chewy played that deck more than anybody. And it was bad. And if anything, if I even keep it, it's obviously losing the commander. But I'm actually thinking about repurposing it as a Knights deck, because there's a lot of Knights support in Eldraine, but the commander obviously has to go.
Yeah.
Another one was Firesong and Sunspeaker, which was the buy a box promo. It is in white and red, and that was a really interesting one. And for my purposes, I think I'm considering converting it into a commander deck, and with the broader, the more selections of the card base of commander, I think it'll only get more interesting. And yes, I know some people feel that way about the Brawl format in general, but I do think there's enough cards in standard for most strategies to be effective. But certainly I think they're one that they are so unique. I don't think I can really convert this deck to just a straight Boros deck with any other commander and have it work even close to the same.
Right.
Question mark for Feather, but a lot of times I want to be blowing up your stuff with Firesong and Sunspeaker, not my own. Third one is Muldrotha the Gravetide in Sultai colors. And that's another one that I'm considering converting to commander, because once again, there's some other graveyard-tastic stuff in standard, but nothing that quite has this sort of effect. I mean, it's just amazing what this card does and the synergies that it has. And that was probably the second Brawl deck that I built, and I was really proud of the way it worked. I think Mike played this deck more than anybody, which, if you've known Mike for any length of time, probably shouldn't surprise you. And I think
I think it was more appealing to me because I'm the one who most likes to play like that.
Right. And I think we didn't keep a win-loss record, but I feel like every game you played, you were involved. You were doing things, right? So.
Yeah, I liked it so much that I converted my Mimeoplasm commander deck into a Muldrotha commander deck.
Well, there you go. So I'm debating that one. I don't think I'm gonna try to convert it to a Brawl deck with another commander. I may switch it over to commander. I may not. Then the last of the original 4 that I built is in green and red, and it's Grand Warlord Rada. And this one I do think I am going to convert to a Brawl deck with a different commander. It actually loses. I was tallying this up. It actually loses more cards than any other deck except for the white-black deck. It loses. Where are you? It loses.
Yeah, because that was the one with all the dinosaurs that Dirk would terrorize us with when we played, right?
The very first game we played, Dirk got out a Polyraptor, and then there was this hilarious moment where I was playing Firesong and Sunspeaker, and I played Star of Extinction, and somehow the Star of Extinction blew up everything except for the dinosaurs. because the Polyraptor just said whoop, and there were 2 at the time. So yeah, I did lose 23 creatures, but only 3 non-creature spells and 3 lands, and I'm considering changing this to Grum Gully the Generous. He's a green-red commander, green-red legendary creature in Eldraine. He's only an uncommon, but he plays really well with non-creatures, and I think that could be a really interesting
non-humans rather.
What's that?
Non-humans rather.
I meant non-humans. I'm sorry, but I think that could be a really interesting way to build the deck. And I can keep a lot of what is left in it and actually change up a couple things and maybe just run straight no humans allowed. I thought about maybe using Domri, and I'm like, I think when we were talking about Eldraine, we mentioned that a lot of the new commanders are actually really kind of interesting to build around. So I have currently built up 3 other Brawl decks, 1 Vraska Golgari Queen, 1 Amara Soul of the Accord, and 1 Tamio Collector of Tales. None of those are rotating out. Each one is losing a decent amount of cards, but not the commander themselves. And because all of them were built in Ravnica block, return to Ravnica block or later, they actually are not losing a whole lot. Vraska's losing a decent amount, including OG Vraska from Ixalan, the pirate Vraska Relic Seeker, and I'm going to be sad to see that one gone because it was cool to have out 2 Vraskas at once. So, but yeah, I'm thinking strongly about, like I said, repurposing the Knight deck and the red-green deck. I'm thinking about changing the Firesong and Sunspeaker to a commander deck, and the Muldrotha is kind of question mark right now. And then the others, I think I'm going to be inserting some new things in, and I think I'm going to build at least 1 new Brawl deck. I want to talk to Mike, but chat, if you have is there a legendary creature or planeswalker from Eldraine that you think would be super interesting to build a Brawl deck around? Let me know in the comments, and we'll kind of come back to that. Mike has also built a Brawl deck. Mike, who is your Brawl deck's commander?
Yeah, I only got around to building 1 Brawl deck. I got Ral is a Viceroy, so the Planeswalker, new Planeswalker, okay. Ral Zarek, the mythic version from Guilds of Ravnica. And part of it was because I was so enthused about Guilds of Ravnica that I actually bought a box, which I haven't done in a very, very long time. And I got a Ral, I got a Niv Mizzet, I got a 1,000-Year Storm, and all kinds of other cool stuff because that was the set that Izzet was featured in.
Right.
Between Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Legions. So, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of neat. It's mostly tempo based. Red and blue aren't the best control colors all the time in terms of like hard, bunches of card advantage control. It just depends. The Izzet Guild isn't really about that anyway, so that particular character of the color combination wasn't on display in those sets. But it plays really fun. It starts to get worse the more opponents that I add to the game, but it plays really fun and actually didn't lose all that much. I think the most important things that it did lose were Gutter Snipe and Lightning Strike. Gutter Snipe, Lightning Strike, and Divination.
Ooh, yeah, you don't have Gutter Snipe anymore?
No, Gutter Snipe was in a core set.
Now, you do still have the wall, right?
I still have the wall, yes.
Okay. So you Gutter Snipe, Lightning Strike, which is just a good removal. And what was the last one?
Divination. It did lose several other more utility type things, and it lost 3 of the lands, but those will be easy enough to replace.
Oh, yeah. So if we're talking about just cards that rotate out in general, I did want to mention a couple things. Lands, I felt like a lot of decks that I had a Zeraphim Void, just the one that comes in that scries, for free. I was also telling Chewy that when I was looking through these cards, I realized that literally every deck I had that had green in it, every deck that had black had Whisperer, or almost everyone. Every deck that had green, absolutely, positively, whether it had other dinosaurs or not, had Territorial Allosaurus. Because it's a creature with built-in removal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, Pinball Witch mentions you lost the Buddy land, sadly, and that is absolutely correct. I was looking through these lands, I'm like, yeah goodbye. The white-black deck lost Isolated Chapel.
Yeah, that whole cycle was in Dominaria.
Yeah, the whole one. Yeah, and
the enter tapped lands, like the Blue Red one's Highland Lake.
Right.
Those were scattered among core sets and supplemental stuff, but they aren't in standard anymore.
Right. Yeah, the Rado deck lost Rootbound Crag. So, yeah. But Buddy Land's gone. A lot of big finishers with the dinosaurs actually are gone. So, Lightning Strike being gone. Now, when we talk about your deck in particular, have you considered doing anything with the red-blue when you draw your second card each turn mechanic?
Yes, I have. There's lots of opportunities to make this deck a lot better and a lot more interesting, just to give it more stuff to do.
Right. What's the enchantment for a blue and a red that you get
makes a fairy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name right now, but it makes a fairy, and it also has an activated ability where you can draw a card, discard a card.
Yeah. Unexpected Alliances, something like that. So, something. Yeah. Dark Side. I mean, what? You doing okay, Dirk?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. You don't have any Brawl decks, right?
I don't. Mostly my issue with Brawl decks is that I have nothing that's current.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say nothing that's current, I mean literally nothing.
Right. But you
yeah, because you haven't even been to pre-releases in a while, right?
Yeah, I think the last time I've been to a pre-release was the second Ravnica block.
The actual Return to Ravnica.
Gotcha,
yeah,
you're right.
Return to Ravnica, that block was the last time I went to a pre-release.
Right. So, obviously, because I knew that not everybody would be wanting to invest in Brawl, I made sure to make the decks myself. And I think Dirk has played the Rada deck more than anybody, because it's green and red, and you play big creatures, and you smash face with it. So, which he did extremely well. I know he won at least one game with it. So, was it entertaining for you to play?
Oh yeah, it is a lot of fun to play.
Good. So yeah, just for your information, Dirk. Yeah, it's losing pretty much all the dinosaurs, and by pretty much I mean like
all of them.
It's about literally all the dinosaurs. You also know that Llanowar Elves is not in standard anymore because it was in Dominaria. That's a little sad.
Huh.
Yeah. We get the Golden Goose now, which is great, don't get me wrong, but the fact that you can't use it every turn without some kind of other food producer does make it a little more limited. Part of me wonders if they didn't want to have Llanowar Elves and what's the beast, the Lovestruck Beast, in the format at the same time.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of silly when you pose it like that.
Yeah, just think about, like, the whole point in the adventure is get a little dude. If you had a Llanowar Elf, you would almost never need to even cast the adventure, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you could for redundancy's sake, but you could have an easy turn 2 beast that can go ahead and attack next turn. Yeah, let's not think about that very long.
Also, Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic, they're one of those kind of they're really a format defining card with the way they define the tempo of the games that you play.
Oh yeah.
Not quite on the level of Lightning Bolt, but they're up there.
Yeah. So I think it's telling that now we have this bird, the Gilded Goose, that does a really good Birds of Paradise impression with a slightly bigger butt, but you can't use it every turn. So that's not insignificant. Having to take a turn off to get food or having some other way to produce it is not something you can just say, oh well, it's basically a bird of paradise, you know. So yeah. So someone in the chat mentioned earlier they think that where was it? The first answer to the Emery Lurker of the Lock seems neat, and that does seem like a really neat one. It'd be a mono blue deck with an emphasis on artifacts, maybe a little bit of self mill, Mike. Maybe. So that could be quite interesting. I haven't gotten an Emery yet. I haven't really gotten a whole lot of the new set yet, but that could be cool. And Sir Kara. Which one's Sir Kara? I'm not sure which color is Sir Kara, because I know that there was the cycle of Uncommon Nice. Kara.
It's not the blue one?
It's the red one.
The red one.
That is an instrument. That is.
I want to build a deck around Sir Kara the Bold.
Well, all right then. You have dibs.
I mean, you can still do it.
But I know, but somehow I don't think it'd be as good as yours. Do you think this slots into your is it deck, or do you think this is doing its own thing where, it deserves its own deck?
This really deserves its own deck.
Okay.
So you can just go completely nuts with it.
That sounds fair. I like things that go nuts. Sorry, I didn't have a good segue away from that, but yeah, cool. Are there any other cards, Mike? Since Dirk doesn't really have any cards from Eldraine, Chewy, I'm assuming you're not building a new deck anytime soon, or am I incorrect about that? I don't want to make assumptions because
no, it's a really safe assumption to make.
That's a really safe assumption. So, Mike, are there any other cards in Eldraine that you either see building a Brawl commander deck with a Brawl deck as your commander, or you see slotting into a Sir Kara deck or your Izzet deck?
That is a lot. I don't have a good answer for that right now.
Okay. All right. So sorry if I'm not trying to catch you unawares or anything like that. I've done a quick pass at the set. Done a quick pass at the set just to see, because obviously decks that I want to continue playing, I've got to be able to bring some things in. Just for reference, the Amara Soul of the Accord actually is losing very, very little stuff. My Amara deck is only losing 5 creatures, 5 non-creatures, and 2 lands. And the 2 lands are Sunpetal Grove and Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin was another one that was in every deck. Because one of the things I tried to do with these was, because I knew that I and then later Mike would be the other ones to build these decks, I didn't want to build one amazing deck that was going to run over the others all the time, so I tried to balance them. Obviously, with the white-black Knight deck, I didn't do quite as good a job, because I think from Chewy's, Chewy can correct me, but I think the problem with that deck was it just kind of ran out of gas after a while, right? And it couldn't keep up with the others.
Yeah, it needed to get off the ground running, and then it could hold its own and snowball and win. But if it didn't hit the ground running hard, then it would just sort of sit there and go, hi.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't kill me.
I think, yeah.
I have something in my nose.
There were 1 or 2 games where you actually got off to a pretty good start, and then either the board would get wiped and you didn't have a way to come back from it, or Dirk would play a big dinosaur that just blanked your stuff. So, yeah. So my point isn't to highlight my failure. My point is to say that when I restructure these, I want to make sure that I'm doing so in a fair and balanced way. But I feel like Amara, I'm not losing too much stuff. I am losing a couple neat things like Zetalpa, which was the Acroma dinosaur. And every deck lost some Guild Lotus and some of the thaumatic compasses and that sort of stuff. I was also a big fan of Howling Golem, the golem that whenever it attacked, everybody got to draw a card because, you know, everybody loves drawing cards, right? But I do think there's a good amount of green and white stuff in Eldraine that will slot into this really well. I'm really a fan of some of the adventure creatures because of the way that you have, as we said before during previews, the fact that you get both a spell and a creature. And I think that the giant, the Beanstalk Giant, is probably going to go into X decks, where X is the number of Beanstalk Giants that I get. Because, I mean, you know, who doesn't play land acceleration, you know? Followed by a giant that's an XX giant. So, yeah, so some decent stuff there, I think. And definitely some interesting possibilities for some commanders. Skytonic asks, speaking of Emery, Lurker of the Loch, do you think she could be better as the pilot or be in the Brawl deck? I think maybe Skytonic is asking in the 59 other cards. And I could see it going either way.
She doesn't seem super necessary to be the commander.
I can see it going either. I think obviously if how hard you lean on the theme could determine whether or not she's completely necessary all the time. Like if your entire goal is use her to recur artifacts or get them out cheap and early or anything like that, then she's probably going to have to be the commander. Or if your commander of your deck, let's say maybe it's a blue-black deck, and you just want yet another way to reuse things from the graveyard, and you've got a decent amount of artifacts, she could also fit in the 59 because she throws stuff in your graveyard when she comes in, and the ability to reuse some of the things later. I think the weakness obviously is when, or not weakness, I shouldn't say that, but when she's the commander, I feel like you have to be pretty much all in on that theme. What do you guys think? Chewy, you were saying you think she would need to be the commander?
No, I'm thinking that she doesn't seem like she would be the commander, just in the way that I would build which I wouldn't because it's blue and creature and artifacts in the graveyard, which is totally not me, but it just doesn't feel like the commander. It feels more like a piece of the deck.
A piece of the deck. I got you.
Yeah. The type of deck that she'd be the commander of would be pretty silly in particular. Not silly in an actual like goofy way, but silly in a oh my god, please stop way.
I think there's the potential there, kind of like Urza in Modern Horizons, where you could build a fair Emery deck, but you could also go all in on a Dear Lord, you know. I think you could play Emery very competitively, and if that is what you are trying to do, then all the more power to you. Just make sure that, as we have said countless times on this show, make sure you know the people you're playing with, whether it's people at your local game store or your play group, or if you're going to an event at a Magic Fest. Probably be a good idea to have a goal in mind. And if your goal is to make a hyper-competitive deck, Emery might be one to get you there, because she just smacks of being able to do unfair things. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
So, Pinball Witch does say, and it is important to remember, yes, just like in Commander, color identity matters. So, if Emery is your commander, you are going mono blue. And if you're running artifacts, I realize we live in a world now where we have colored artifacts, but for the most part, yeah, that's really not going to be a problem because mono blue and artifacts go along really well together, like peanut butter and more peanut butter. Yeah. So
he's trying, but we really wish he wouldn't.
Sorry about that. So, any other thoughts about Brawl? I think we've.
So to answer your question earlier about things that stood out to me for, cards to replace in the Brawl, is it Viceroy deck or other cards that might slot into, some other deck I might have ideas about. Yeah, there are several. Of course, pretty much any of the when you draw your second card each turn, do something. Would be great. But Fairy Vandal gets +1/+1 counters. That's awesome. Aaron Crag Pyromancer throws lightning bolts.
Is that the 0/4 for 3?
Yeah, and I got one of those in my prize packs from the pre-release.
Wow. Somehow, I don't know. Did we just not cover that during previews? Maybe it was released late in the cycle, or did we just skip over it?
Which card?
I thought I mentioned it. It might have been at the end of the show after you'd left.
Okay. Chewy,
final thoughts.
Chewy, you would remember. Do you remember talking about that one during previews?
I literally just asked which card?
Iron Crag Pyromancer.
And what's it do, Mike?
So for 2 and a red, 0/4 Human Wizard. It's rare. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Iron Crag Pyromancer deals 3 damage to any target.
How do you spell that? It's not coming up together.
It's not Iron Crag. It's IREN.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't see any of the pre-release, and I didn't go over the card image gallery with a fine-tooth comb. So I was playing Arena, and I'm like, I haven't seen this card, and then it killed me.
This feels like something that we talked about after Brian dipped out one episode.
Yeah, it is.
Because there was literally a game where, I kid you not, I was slow, and I was mana. I don't remember which deck I was running, but I was like mana screwed, and an opponent got out. I kid you not, 4 of these. He was also stuck on 3 mana, but he just kept playing more, and I kept looking at them, and I'm like, I need removal. I need anything. And I kept drawing things that weren't lands, and I'm like, no. So finally, once he had 4, then he starts playing his draw spells, and he killed me in like 2 turns. So obviously that's worst case scenario for me, but even with just one of these, this is crazy. A free lightning bolt that's just like, oh, you drew 2 cards. Either your second card in your turn, which is really easy to do because you already draw one automatically, or your second card in somebody else's turn, or both. Thank God it doesn't say for each card you draw after the first, because that would be dumb.
Yes, it would.
Okay, so that you would definitely put in. And you said you already got one from your prize pool?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Because whether or not the listeners know, we're not sponsored by Wizards or anything like that. We don't have unlimited access to cards. So when I'm thinking, oh, this card would be great in this deck, if it's like a $50 card, it's probably not going to happen unless I've been very lucky. Are there any really hot item cards? Once Upon a Time, I'm sure, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And Oko, probably?
Probably. It's probably best not to go down that path on this particular episode.
I got you. My only point being that, while it sounds great, and last year I actually solicited advice from people because I was only dealing with 4 decks, and I went into, this is what's going out, this is what I want to put in. A lot of people gave some very helpful advice, and a lot of it was great, but if it wasn't already in my collection, and if it wasn't something I was going to trade for, I probably was like, maybe not. Even if it was a perfect fit, because as it is, I can't really justify spending extra real world monies on these, especially since we don't play as often as we'd like. So the restraints of the real world. Pinball Witch did say Oko. Is that a suggestion for a commander? Because
no, she was answering what's expensive right now.
Oh, okay. Because I think Oko as a commander could also be very entertaining. Chewy ran into an Oko against him at the pre-release, and Oko won right?
I was literally just because I have nothing to say on this episode. I was just poking around on Twitter, and I saw Nick Miller just like half an hour ago tweeted that Oko is an idiotic card. He's playing the most aggressive deck in the format and still can't beat Oko.
What's the most aggressive deck? Mono red.
He's claiming it's Knights.
Knights, really? I would think it'd be the mono red with the enchantment. Whenever you attack with a small creature, ping them.
Cavalcade, which is what Ricky Hayashi said. He's like Cavalcade red, and Nick says Cavalcade's pretty unplayable in his opinion. But opinions are like things that everyone has. But the point is, an Oko on turn 3 is incredibly hard to get past with anything ever.
Yeah. I mean, Oko is insane because just generating the food against an aggressive deck can be like just, all right, well, why am I even bothered? But if you're not playing against an aggressive deck...
+1 time walk.
Yeah. And then if you're not playing against an aggressive deck, then, making, free 3/3s or turning their 7/7s into 3/3s or switching... Oko's just crazy. Oko is just nuts. So, yeah. Garrick seems pretty cool. I like Garrick. I think we all like Garrick.
Very cool.
If I got a Garrick, it would almost certainly go in. I don't think he would go in his own deck, but I think he'd go in the Vraska deck pretty easily. Make some wolves, then sack one to Vraska to plus her loyalty by 2, plus the Garrick by 1, and gain a life and draw a card. Excuse me, I gotta go get a Garrick now. That's gonna be pretty awesome. Lots of we had said after the pre-release, we felt like there was a decent amount of quality removal in the set. It's one of the things that made Sealed kind of an interesting format because it felt like the removal was a little more pushed than some of the previous sets. Is that, Mike, you remember talking about that?
Yeah, common removal is way better.
Yeah.
Than it has been in a long time.
I mean, I could see putting bacon to a pie in a couple of these decks because, answer that big thing and get a food token. Sure, for 4 mana at instant speed. And that's just, like Mike said, a piece of common removal. So,
yeah, we used to have to pay 6 for that, and the rider would be something stupid like, the opponent loses 2 life. Like, whoa, thanks.
Yeah. Murderous Rider. Pretty darn
awesome. Rider's awesome.
Yeah. I really feel like any of the adventure guys are pretty cool. And there's, of course, the innkeeper that's like, hey, stay a while and listen to my tale and draw some cards. So, yeah.
And the Lucky Clover lets you get 2 uses out of every adventure.
Lucky Clover is crazy in an deck. Just crazy. Lucky Clover, what, for 2 mana?
Yeah, just 2 mana.
Just 2 mana artifact that just says whenever you play an adventure, instant, or sorcery, you get to copy it for free?
Yep, you get to copy the adventure.
That's pretty silly. Is it legendary?
No.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay.
Yeah, it helped me win my first round at the pre-release, and I never drew it again.
Pinball Witch says the thing about building a Chulane. Which one's Chulane? Is that one of the Brawl constructed? Is that
it's a Teller of Tales person.
Oh yeah, that one's really interesting. I guess we haven't mentioned yet that, of course, with the Brawl decks, which I understand are hard to come by, but with them being in the format, this makes a couple other things legal that wouldn't otherwise be. Obviously, the commanders themselves that are only available through this product, or are they also available in the special boosters? They might be.
I think they are.
Yeah, okay. Anything that's anywhere else is also in the collector boosters.
Collector boosters. Okay, thank you, Chewy, and Mike. Also, because of those, Arcane Signet is legal, and that can be a bit of a sore point because you can only get it through these decks. Now, I remember when the original Commander decks came out, I didn't grab a whole bunch, and it felt like I was always short on Command Towers because Command Tower goes in Commander decks, unless they're monocolored, because why not? It's basically a pain-free city of brass, you know? So, I wonder if over time, as they continue to, assuming they continue to release more Brawl decks, Arcane Signet might come down. But on a related note, Command Tower is in the Brawl decks, therefore it is also legal for Brawl. And since I now actually have a couple extra Commander Towers lying around, hey, those are going to go in, let's probably say, most of these decks. Am I right? I feel a bit conflicted about this because listeners may know I'm not a big fan of auto includes. One of the reasons I don't like to run a whole lot of Soul Rings is because it feels like it literally goes in every deck. And I'm gonna do it because I like the value, but at the same time I'm like, I just don't like feeling like my deck, any part of my deck, if I can help it, is already made for me. I think I give a pass though to mana bases just because a mana base is essentially there to let you play other cards. So I feel like a bit of a hypocrite about it, but yeah, I'm in favor of Command Tower. So, Mike, you think you'll be playing with Command Tower in your deck almost certainly?
If I can find one, if I can find an extra one laying around, I might just cannibalize one of the old Commander decks that I never play with anymore.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of my old ones too. That's a separate episode, of course. But yeah. So, well, again, did not want to get into a card for card analysis for the most part. There are some cards leaving that I am a little sad to be leaving, like the Territorial Allosaurus. And definitely some Gilded Lotus being gone is going to hurt a little bit. But for the most part, we do have some interesting cards coming in. So I think we'll adapt. It'll also be a little sad to say goodbye to some of the decks, but I definitely think I'm going to be converting that Fire Song and Sunspeaker into a deck. Well, that's what I had written down for my notes. Mike, is there anything else you want to say on this particular topic?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, there's a really big shift in the cards we have access to and the character of them. Since you lose the flashy and even unusual tribal themes from Ixalan and the legend focused stuff from Dominaria. When there's right at the start of a rotation season, right at the start of a rotated season. What am I trying to say there? Right after a rotation.
There you go.
There we go.
The new stuff is going to have a much more outsized influence because, there's 3 or 4 or 5, however many sets leaving,
right,
and just one or two replacing it. Counting the new core set.
Right.
So it's going to have a really outsized influence on what kinds of things you can build and what kinds of decks you'll be playing against. And there's a lot of exciting stuff in Eldraine. There's a lot of good removal in Eldraine. There's a lot of interesting themes to build around.
Yeah.
So we're definitely not being deprived of any options for fun here.
Cool. Absolutely. Well, right. I want to thank Chewy and Mike for their input on this as well, because I know that this was not something that was as near and dear to their hearts. But I think we have said what we wanted to say without dragging the point out entirely. So I'll leave it up to Chewy, our master of ceremonies. Do you want to do something else? Maybe do like a story circle, or should we wrap this episode up a bit early? We've been saying for a while now that our episodes are a little long, but always a good time. What do you think? What do you want to do, sir?
given how late we started, I'm fine with just having like an extended final thoughts thing.
Okay. Extended final thoughts it is. Well, Dirk, why don't, since you've been, this has not been your thing, but again, I do appreciate your input. You want to lead us off with some expanded final thoughts?
Since we've had the talk about Brawl and everything, I think at some point, whenever finances, or even if my kids ever end up with a significant interest in Magic, I will probably look into getting stuff that's so that we can probably build some Brawl decks and everything. Trevor is the closest person right now to playing Magic and learning the rules and everything. He has a little bit of an interest, but it's right now his thing is, well, just build me something and we'll play. Okay, awesome. That was fun. Let's go do something else now. And so he doesn't have...
Wait a minute, hang on. Is Dirk echoing for anyone else?
Not that I can tell.
I hear it.
Okay, Mike, that means it's coming from you.
How is that possible?
I have no idea, but you're lighting up at the end of Dirk's sentences, which means somehow it's coming from you.
All right, let me turn down my volume.
Okay.
That's weird.
It is. It's tripping me out, but all I can see is you lighting up, so...
Is it still happening?
I don't know. Dirk, say something.
Well, this is me talking now. Let's see if that changes.
I don't hear it.
But why don't hear Dirk's voice? Oh, computer's haunted.
Oh, that explains it. Yeah, the computer.
I'm so amazing I get heard twice.
Maybe that's it. That's probably it.
Dirk, may I interject something into your final thought?
Absolutely.
Well, okay, I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm being...
Yeah, I know.
So I was just going to say, first of all, that my daughter just turned 9, and if you ask how that's possible, I'm just like, it blows my mind. But Dirk and his kids were nice enough to get Samantha the 2 new Planeswalker decks, the Rowan deck and the Oko deck, with the, powered down Planeswalkers. Those are Brawl legal because they are in standard, correct, Mike? And people that would keep track of that thing better than I do? Yeah.
Correct.
So, the way that I started playing when I was learning from our friend Nate was the first deck I ever built was I went out and bought a pre-constructed deck from Apocalypse, and then I twisted it to my own ends. And it was a ton of fun. So if you're interested, you mentioned finances. If you're interested in doing that, and you think that Trevor would take with that, then absolutely, I think one of those decks, or a Brawl deck might be even better, but obviously those are hard to find. But a Planeswalker deck would be perfect, and then you maybe buy a booster or two and change some of the cards out if you want to customize it. Me, I'm all about customization, but there you go, because you could go ahead and use the Planeswalker as a commander. So, just a thought.
I forget, do the game night box sets, is that full of stuff to build decks with, or do they have pre-made decks in them?
I don't think I bought one. So, chat?
Game night
is pre-made. Thank you, Pinball.
Yeah. And it's very helpful to have stuff like that around if you want to play with people who are interested in playing but not interested in building decks.
Right. Again, the whole reason why I built the Brawl decks so that we could all try out the format, but without making everybody go out and spend a bunch of money to build decks that they were ambivalent. So, but you feel like this discussion has, shall we say, curated an interest for you?
Well, it's one that anytime we have a new format, because remember, we all started out playing 60-card decks, and then it was, all right, well, here's this new format of Two-Headed Giant, and then there was, then we've got Plane Chase and Arch Enemy, and then prior to that, we had started doing the commander decks and everything, and so Brawl seems to be a new format that...
Don't forget Assassin.
Oh yeah, well, that was back in our 60-card days and everything too.
I know.
There's so many different formats that we started doing, and then we were like, hey, that was kind of fun. And then we just started gravitating towards those at some point. I mean, we haven't gone back to Arch Enemy, and it's been a while since we did Plane Chase, but that doesn't mean that that's not formats that we couldn't play or things of that sort. It's just
absolutely.
But again, I think at some point, I wouldn't mind, Trevor doing or me giving that a shot. The major problem with it is just that once you build a deck, you do have to keep it legal, and that is
thus the basis for.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate. That's the hard part, is making sure that it is legal.
Yeah,
because it's so much easier to do Commander, where you just be like, well, I'm just going to build this deck and just use all these old cards I have and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, and I do think that's...
And that's the main reason that when Brawl, they're like, hey, it's Brawl, but it rotates. And I'm like, well, you can shove it up your ass, because I have no cards that are legal in Standard. I haven't for years, and I don't have any interest in trying to find them. I don't have any money to buy them anyway. So, like, it just does. It's not a thing. Now, if we were still playing hard and buying lots of cards, I'd probably be all over it.
Right. Yeah, and that's sort of the thing, too, is the only time I would play is with you guys, unless Trevor and I were competing and doing our thing. But again, that means that he would have to have an interest in it. And right now, that's just... he's interested in Pokemon. He's interested in a lot of things, but his interest is one of those things where he bounces around between things that he really likes.
And that's he's not for a
interested in something specifically, like just this one thing. Yeah. And because of that, it's not easy for me to say, well, I'll go out and buy lots of cards and all this so that we can, practice and all this. He's just all over. He was telling me he wanted me to get him Beyblade because he's got this interest in Beyblades. Well, he had interest in Pokemon, Legos, Harry Potter. I mean, he's had a very large list of things that he's had an interest in, and it's like, okay, well, now you want something else. Well, I need you to stick with something that you like instead of going all over the place.
Yeah, it can be tricky. On the one hand, you certainly want to encourage him to get lots of different interests, and not just be stuck on one thing forever. But on the other hand, you do want to be like, okay, let's develop this one interest for a while. So I see your point. And you'll just need to gauge that going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's essentially my final thought in all this.
Okie
Word?
Well, are you sticking around for a while? Do you need to go? We're not quite as late as we are sometimes.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up having to go here in this because with the baseball game. So I hopped on late because my son had a baseball game. We were we actually ended early. The game ended early, so we didn't have to play another inning, and so it was like, hey, awesome, let's get this done. Okay, I got to go home and do this. And then when we got home, I had to make sure that Trevor and got his bath and everything, and I had to help Chelsea with Penny because Penny was having one of her meltdowns and everything. So it was one of those things where it took me a little while to get on because of all the stuff having to take care of with the kids. So. And I'm kind of exhausted at this point with regards to my day. It's one of those things where once you're a parent, you're like, holy moly, I'm so glad that, I do still have time where I can, participate in the podcast. Because the honest truth is that if, with the way I know Brian's life goes and my life goes, this is probably the only time we would ever get to keep up with, Chewy and Mike and each other. So. The downside of becoming an adult. All those out there that are not adults just quite yet, just realize that adulting is not fun.
Adulting is not fun all the time.
Well, it can be fun, But understand that there will come a point when you're like, oh, I can't wait to do that. And then you do, and you're like, man, I wish I could be a kid again. This stinks.
That's why I'm not an adult yet, see?
Mm-hmm. See?
Yeah.
So, but with that, I have to head on. So you all have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Night, Zerk.
So, for my final thought, I don't know that it'll take quite as long because I felt like this episode was already a little Brian heavy. I don't know. We'll have to look at the metrics later, but it's was my idea, and I was like, let's do this. So I appreciate everybody kind of indulging me. Not to say this was just for me. I certainly hope that everybody listening got a lot out of the discussion, and I want to thank everybody for their comments. But again, this is the one that I built the decks for, so I appreciate that. Two things, I guess. One, Magic is basically piggybacking off of what we've already talked about. Really enjoying what I've been playing of Eldraine on Arena, since I don't play in person nearly as often as I like. It's one of those things where, back when I would play Magic online, I would play it more than paper Magic just because it's right there. So I've been enjoying it on Arena. Feel like this has a lot of really cool, neat cards. And then on the not Magic front, I always try and let people know when I'm trying out a new mobile game. A new mobile game dropped literally today, and I have not had the chance to try it, but I've heard only good things. It has been available in Japan since I think April, and one of the streamers or content producers for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius that I watch a lot of his videos for was very, very excited for this to come out in English in the United States and Canada, and it's called Last Claudia, and it's produced by, where's the name of the company? Aidis, AIDIS, and it looks gorgeous. It just looks really nice. So I'm looking forward to giving it a shot either tonight if I can keep myself awake, or tomorrow. I like to try new games. I was trying out a Dragon Ball Z game for a while. I was actually trying out Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links for a while. Heresy, I know, for a Magic player, but, gave it a shot. And then I only have finite amounts of time in a day, so I tend to try them for a while. If I'm not really enjoying it, I stop after a while. I am still trying Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which if anybody is playing that, I hope you enjoy it. I find it to be extremely grind heavy, and part of the issue is I didn't know it existed, and it came out in like 2016 or something. So I'm so far behind that it feels like people have been playing the game for 3 years, and they're like, yeah, we've had access to this content, and I'm like, but I'm new, so maybe that's on me. But I am looking forward to trying this out, and I will report back if it is any fun. And certainly I would encourage anybody else to try it out and let me know what they think. So Magic, not Magic, life's okay, work's all right. Kid's 9 now somehow. Life is pretty good, I guess. Can't complain about too much, or I could, but hashtag first world problems? I don't know. That's all I got. I'm not passed out yet, so I'll listen to you guys complain. I mean, talk about your day or something. Mike?
Let's see. Gosh, I don't know. I don't really have anything to complain about. I don't think I have any follow-on thoughts for the topic at hand for today's episode either. Covered it pretty well. I also have very little standard legal stuff, even though I got a box of Guilds of Ravnica. I can't remember whether I also got one of Ravnica Allegiance. I might have, just because it was so interesting, but so I guess I have cards, but I have no idea what they are because I haven't looked at them in a while. I haven't really kept up with standards to know what people are playing. Just haven't been reading news. I think when they stopped having regular news features about stuff like that on the main Magic website, that's when I just lost all knowledge of it, because I just didn't feel like, just adding more stuff to the list of things that I check on a regular basis. Stuck with my existing routines.
Mike is bad about that. He's still using a browser from like the 90s.
Well, I agree with
Mike. It's the modern day version of that browser from the 90s.
I realized when I was looking at cards to get ready for this, I have not been to a Friday Night Magic standard tournament, let alone anything more serious than that, in a long time. Like, I was seriously like you said, I was like, wait a minute, this stuff isn't in the format anymore. It probably hasn't been for, some of this hasn't been for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I think I've been to like 3 FNMs max in the last 2 or 3 years.
My thing is, I have to have a deck that I actually feel good about playing. So if I don't feel inspired to build a deck, I'm not going to bother. Once again, why I love sealed and draft person.
Hey, Pinball Witch threw 10 bits to help Mike buy a more modern browser. They're free, so Chewy can keep the bits. Oh, thanks.
Win-win situation.
And in case you just heard the sound of a modem starting to dial in and connect, it's because Stark dropped a link in the chat, and I clicked on it, and then I missed the mute button.
Wait, you mean
don't freak out. That was coming from the podcast.
You mean I've been sending my $10 a week to some guy in Alaska for the ability to use Chrome for no reason?
Yes. Also, I appreciate it. I mean, what? Nothing.
Anything else, Mike? I know we kind of chimed in, but
no, it's really a similar thing to you. I have to have a deck that I want to play, and I also have to have time to do it. So, haven't had a lot of either over the past couple of years. So thank goodness for the podcast and pre-releases.
Yeah. No, right?
Yeah.
That is where I get approximately 90% of my new cards. Between that and drafting. And I don't draft as often as I'd like, so.
Yeah. All right, then. I guess that's me.
That is you.
Let's see. What have I been doing lately other than working on stuff constantly? I've been watching a lot of YouTube. Like, I rediscovered Vsauce. I think I said it at the end of last week, but Mindfield, which is a YouTube premium show by Vsauce, Michael Stevens, is free to watch for the rest of the year. And it's all about... It's essentially like a television documentary series, so it's got high production values and it's very well done, but it's all about the mind, and it's awesome. And hey, Luby Loki Love just subbed for 3 months. Thank you much. Yay. But from there, I've been rewatching a bunch of Vsauce videos, which is Michael Stevens just talking about whatever sort of interesting, intelligent thing strikes his fancy at the time, it seems. And from there, I discovered that Adam Savage has a YouTube channel called Adam Savage's Tested.
Why does that name sound familiar?
Mythbusters.
Okay, never watched Mythbusters. Is he not related to Fred Savage?
No.
Okay, that's where the name sounds familiar. Okay.
Huh. So yeah, I've been watching his One Day Builds series the last couple days, and it's fascinating watching him. No one day build takes an actual one day, so it's a misnomer. But he's been building all kinds. I started from most recent and worked my way down. The last one I watched today was he was at the Weta Workshop in New Zealand with one of their sword makers making a sword. and it was awesome, even though apparently there were technical difficulties and his mic wasn't on. So the sword maker, you could hear him clearly, and then Adam, you were getting like secondhand audio from, but it was still perfectly audible and fascinating to watch how you build a sword and all that.
What kind of sword was it?
Aragorn sword, actually.
Oh, cool.
It was an aluminum or aluminium, depending on where you're from, replica of the Aragorn sword that they ground out from a long chunk of aluminum instead of like, what's the word I'm looking for? What do you do with a sword?
Stab people.
No. How do you make a sword? What's the other way to make a sword?
Forge.
That's the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, steel, iron, but then he's like, what do you do with it? I'm like, well, I probably don't steal with it. That sounds like robbery, So.
But yeah, I've just been enjoying watching Adam Savage make things because he's wonderfully entertaining. And for years, I always thought that like Mike and I, our personalities were, I was Adam Savage and Mike was Jamie Heineman. Because Mike is very, very calm and doesn't do a lot of wild, loud things. And when he does laugh, it's very like serious laugh. See, and it always makes Mike laugh every time. But Adam was always the one with the crazy ideas and who's very loud. And oh my god! And it seemed like us. But yeah, I've always had an affinity for Adam Savage. But I highly recommend his YouTube channel and also Vsauce. Go check both of those out. And hey, while you're there, go to the Mana Pool on YouTube and watch some of my videos. Yeah. At the moment, over on the Mana Pool YouTube channel, well, right now we're finishing up, so I guess by the time you're hearing this as a podcast, the Walking Dead 400 Days is done. Finally. There's only 3 episodes, but like nobody wants to watch it apparently because it's a bummer. Or maybe they're all waiting for all 3 episodes to go up. I don't know. But I can't wait to get past that to something people want to watch. Hopefully people want to watch Layers of Fear Inheritance, which is the DLC for Layers of Fear. And the scariest game I've ever personally played that I played last year for Halloween. And this is the DLC, and it is just as creepy. It's really good. It takes full advantage, the original especially, took full advantage of the fact that in a first-person game, you can only see what's in front of you. And anything that's behind you is liable to change. And it took full advantage of, you walk to a dead end and you go, what the hell? And you turn around and everything's different! And you're like, ah! And it was really cool how quickly and how hard they pushed that in the main game. And the second game was not quite as much of that, but it was still insanely just creepy. Just and it's really well done, and I really enjoyed it. So yay, that'll start going up. I've got some Hearthstone videos that I need to run through to see if they're worth turning into videos, because I did a nice big stream with lots of stuff. So yeah. Yeah, see, St. Saigal is saying he doesn't like the spooky stuff. It's not like cheap jump scare spooky. There are a few jump scares here and there, but it doesn't rely on them. It's much more, Layers of Fear anyway, it's much more like a tension and a deep being creeped out vibe.
That's good.
Yeah, so if it's the jump scares that you don't like in horror games, then I'm not going to say there aren't any because that would be a lie, but that's not the point.
I don't know that. I'm sure you could do horror without jump scares.
Oh yeah, and there are several. Oh, yeah.
But it feels like it's an easy kind of way to get the point across.
Yeah, jump scares when used like sparingly and like the most famous example I always think of is the cat in the first Alien movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, rest assured, the first Alien movie is a straight up horror movie. It's a slasher movie. But the slasher is not Jason Voorhees in a mask. It's a giant alien. But
yes.
And the jump scare, like the cat jump scare, is there to release some of that built up tension that you've got. And
it's not the point in and of itself.
Yeah, like Five Nights at Freddy's, those, at least the first 4, the only ones that I've played, they're really well done when it comes to managing tension, but it's all just the jump scare. Like, it's all fear of a jump scare.
I'm sorry. How many of those games are there? Because I've never played any of them. Did you say the first 4?
Yeah, there have been, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 or something now. I don't know. I sort of stopped. I'm aware of the one that came after 4, which was called Sister Location. And from there, I have no knowledge of them past that, because I completely lost interest.
Kids and their video games.
And yeah, dude, Target used to have a Five Nights at Freddy's section, because kids love it.
Now it's all Hello Neighbor, which I don't get that.
Which I tried to play when it was in beta, and it was just bad. I really hope that they fixed it, but I can't bring myself to
what is that?
Boot it up again. It's another disappointing game. So in Hello Neighbor, so quick side note here. In Hello Neighbor, you live across the street from this dude who you're pretty sure is keeping people in his basement or something. And so you're trying to you're trying to break into his house and sneak into his basement. But supposedly the game is it's supposed to learn from you, so if you always go in the window, then he's gonna like know to look in the window, and it doesn't actually work that way. All it means is that the next time you try to go in the window, there's a trap there that wasn't there before. So the whole learning AI was marketing nonsense, but I just didn't enjoy it. That's why I've never done a stream or a like any videos of it or anything, even though I picked it up way back, because it wasn't fun. It was stupid. But the character was goofy, and they had a fairly sizable marketing push, and there's another new game and featuring the character coming out soon or something, so there's another push.
But so at my daughter's book fair, I saw and this is at her school, I saw books and graphic novels that are like Hello Neighbor, and I'm like, I thought this was just like a silly little video game. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking video games. I love video games, but I didn't realize that it had transcended to that point where it was in different forms of media.
Yeah, that's like I said, Target used to have a Five Nights at Freddy's section. They still have Bendy and the Ink Machine toys hanging out, and it's just another horror video game.
Yeah, I've heard of Bendy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of playing it this before the month is out, because it's like one full stream or like 2 half streams or 1.5 streams or something like that. So I'm thinking of just knocking it out in one go, turning into YouTube videos for the rest of the month, but I haven't decided yet. But anyway. But yeah, jump scares when used properly to release tension at the proper times are brilliant, but when the jump scares become the point, they're just loud and obnoxious and stupid. And that's really one of the, and that line is different for everybody, but that's one of those signs that you're playing either a good game, a good horror game, or a bad horror game. If it's all just something jumps out and goes ah, and you go ah, and that's it, then that's bad. Unless you're looking for bad horror, because lots of people love bad horror, then go for it. But I can't do those type of games because they're stupid. So but anyway, yeah. The Layers of Fear is way more about creeping you out and making you go, what was that over there? Is that something's gonna get me? Am I gonna? And then you see something really messed up and you go, what the? And then it's gone. And then you're like, huh! And then you get that tingle down your spine because and then it messes with your head, and it's great. Which is my favorite kind of horror, which is why I like Layers of Fear, because it's really well done. And it made, like, in the first, okay, when I did the first stream, Layers of Fear took me 2 streams because the first time I couldn't take it. I'm like, y'all, no, we're doing this again tomorrow night. I'm out. Good night. But anyway. So yeah, that's a whole lot of build-up for the DLC. And I think I screwed up when I released the original Layers of Fear videos because I was so concerned with getting them out ahead of Halloween that instead of breaking them up into like 30-minute chunks, I just put up 3 hour-and-a-half long videos.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know Mike is like, yeah, that's why I haven't watched them yet. And I'm like, sorry. But I did break up the DLC into 3 half-hour chunks, slightly less than half-hour chunks. So I've been wondering if I should like re-release them in smaller edible bits.
Edible bit.
Yeah, because it's weird. People will go, that's a 90-minute video. I'm going to not watch that. But then they'll watch 3 30-minute videos in a row. And I'm the same way. Yeah. I'll say, I don't want to watch a 2-hour movie. And then I'll watch 3 episodes of Lucifer back to back to back.
Is that any good?
Yes.
I guess if you're watching 3 episodes of it, it's probably pretty good. So, silly question.
Yeah. So, like, I don't understand that mentality, even though I'm part of it. So, anyway, I'm just talking about random nonsense now. So, that's what's going over on YouTube. Here on Twitch, I'm streaming stuff like the scary games. I've got more scary games. I think this weekend, so apologies if you are hearing this on Sunday and you've already missed it, but I think sometime this weekend, either Friday or Saturday, I'm going to play Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which is the 8-bit Castlevania 3 style game that came out before the full Bloodstained, I forgot the name of the other, Ritual of the Night, I think. Yeah, which was a big Kickstarter game by the guy who was in charge of Castlevania. I forget his name. Iga?
Oh, so is this like the Big Hero 6? Not Big Hero.
Mighty Number 9.
Mighty Number 9 of Castlevanias?
Yeah, except much better.
Much better, good.
Yeah, because Mighty Number 9 took a lot of crap for being bad, but this is... so, Circle of the Moon, the one I'm going to play, because it's the one I own, because it was a gift from, I think, Umpex. But it's an 8-bit style game. It plays like Castlevania 3, but with modern design sensibilities, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm all excited about that, whereas Ritual of the Night is more of a Symphony of the Night style game. So it's more of a Metroidvania instead of linear levels with the boss at the end and all that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, which if I had that, I'd play it too, but I don't have that because it's expensive. So I'll have to get that later at some point when I'm not broke. But yeah. So that and Bendy, I think, are the last 2 quote-unquote spooky games I'm going to play this season. And then they'll be going up on... what's that other... YouTube, there we go, that I was just talking about. So yay! But anyway. But that's it from me. And wasn't that long enough? I think it probably was. We had a good little horror discussion, though. I liked it.
Yeah.
Also, if you're interested in horror movies, then that seems to be what the discussions mainly are about in the Movies and TV channel in the Manipool Discord server. So, hey, if you've ever seen a movie on Netflix and been like, I wonder if I should watch this, chances are Fayan Says has watched it and has talked about it in the Discord server. Or you can ask him. So, yeah. Ow, ow, ow. And a few others. I think Nerd Soda and... I'm missing someone, but I can't flip over and look because it'll screw up the overlay. But anyway, yeah. By the way, you should totally join the Manipool Discord server. It's not one of those Patreon-only Discord servers. I wanted it to be open to everybody. Get more people in, get more discussion. We've got a channel about movies and TV, like I said. We've got channels for Magic and Hearthstone and stuff. We've got a channel for Auto Battler games. Very excited. Dota Underlords is about to release like 12 new heroes sometime in the next like 2 weeks or so. Oh my god, I can't wait.
Yeah.
We've got a channel where anytime I finish a thumbnail, I post it in the thumbnails channel, or when I make multiples and go, hey, which of these should I use? I throw them up, which happened with Layers of Fear. I had 2 different, hey, what do you guys think? Options there. We've got one for streams, and one for the Mana Pool, and one for Monday Night Magic, where if you find something that needs to be talked about on Monday Night Magic, then you can put it there, and I'll be sure to see it there. Yeah, hell yeah. Come hang out. Be a lifeguard. Be a pooligan. Be a whatever. You're about to say, Mike?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Sounded like it just a yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah. But anyway, so the Mana Pool and Mana Pool Productions on the whole is a Patreon-supported endeavor. So if you would like to help me keep the lights on while I keep doing this ridiculous amount of content, like, let's see, 2 podcasts every week, Monday Night Magic and the Mana Pool, and at least 1 YouTube video every day, all day,
every day.
And streams throughout the rest of the week, then you can totally do that. The best way, the most direct way, is to go to patreon.com/themanapool and become a lifeguard there, where you get a variety of perks. At the moment, let's see, you can get YouTube videos and Mana Pool episodes early. You can get access to the odds and ends, which is all the behind-the-scenes nonsense recorded before and after both podcasts. That's uncensored and unfiltered, and it's just us talking about whatever, or planning out what's going to be on the show, or trying to figure out what to name a show, or whatever. It differs heavily from episode to episode. Sometimes it's, all right, it's late, good night. Most of the time, like for Monday Night Magic, Bill and I will go into long conversations about nerdy whatever is on our mind. We had a whole like hour-long thing where we bounced around about the different Final Fantasy games, because it's just what was on our mind. I don't remember how or why. Well, that's what happens. Anytime there's a Marvel movie, we talk about it in the odds and ends. So we issue a spoiler warning. All right, from this point on, it's going to be Far From Home. If you haven't seen it, then don't listen any further. Okay? Okay. And then we go for like 2 more hours. It was a nightmare. But but anyway, and if you so choose, you can become a Mythic Lifeguard and get the sponsorship shout out on both podcasts and in all the end screens for all the YouTube videos that go up each month. So I would like to thank our Mythic Lifeguards. Jason Doan, Kim Ho, Andrew Hunt, Al, Lance Delicious, Team You Hellas Are You, Connor Kennedy, John Morris, Alex Gonzalez, Scuzzo, Jeff Spencer, Stuart Slaw, PJ McMullen, Sophia Bertain, Casey, Fayen Says, Dana Liao, Cody Buckowing, Jake Jansons, Jason Cowles, Gothic Man, Stark Maximum, John Parker, Violet Moon, Mike, Dan Holm, Bartle, Sarah Jane, and the Beastfather, Aaron Goodwine. Who, and to clarify, I did not mean that Far From Home was a nightmare. I meant that the 2-hour discussion. Actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't Far From Home that had the 2-hour discussion. It was Endgame. That one had a 2-hour discussion. Yeah. Far From Home was like a 45-minute discussion, and then we went off on other things they could do with and to Spider-Man in future movies. And that was a lot of fun. But anyway. So yay, that is that. And I think we have stalled long enough to where it's not a super short episode and people will be like, are they okay? And yes, we're fine. Thank you for asking. Hope you are. So this will be the end of the Mana Pool number, what is this? 571. That is not a small number, it turns out. Thank you all so very much for watching, listening, joining us, whatever you did. We appreciate it. And go play some Brawl.